and welcome to Overtime Hockey Talk. My name is Mark Paul. My co-host Justin Baker joining me, and recently fathered. Is that the way you say it?
Is that the way you say it?
Recently fathered. Recently became a father?
Yeah.
So congratulations, Dad.
Thank you. God, yeah. It's wild. November 30th. The due date was actually Christmas Eve, so we got a little early surprise.
Yeah, you kind of dodged a bullet with having to do two things for Christmas.
I know.
It is kind of nice.
Yeah. So the other great thing is my brother-in-law, his birthday is December 2nd. So literally a couple days later. So now every year I can basically
he's going to get trumped.
I can basically shove it to him and just sorry, we're not doing anything for your birthday.
Yeah, no.
We got your nephew.
No, hey, first birthday ever. I mean, you can come. We'll toss you a gift, but I mean, it's going to be all about. But nobody wants to see you smash a cake. They all want to see
exactly.
my little guy smash a cake. So, well, congratulations on becoming a dad. Welcome to the club. And
thank you.
We are going to talk about hockey. We're going to jump into a whole bunch of things going on. I think first and foremost, we'll talk about Patrick Kane, his first game as a Red Wing. Want to get your thoughts on that crazy freaking game with, I believe it was 8 goals in 11 minutes. And like 3 goals in a minute, 3 goals in a couple minutes. Is an absolute madhouse of a game. But we'll talk about the game. We'll talk about Patrick Kane. I think we should hit a little bit on Alex Ovechkin reaching a big milestone. We'll talk all injuries across the league that is likely going to spur some trades amongst defensemen, particularly Dougie Hamilton, who looks like he's going to miss some serious time for the Devils. That's a big, giant hole in their defense, especially considering their poor start. Leafs are looking for defense. I think there's a lot of teams that really could use that extra top 4 defenseman, some more than others, but we know there's teams out there looking, and we'll hit on anything else that we want to talk about too. So stick around. Let's hit Patrick Kane first and foremost. His first game as a Red Wing, it's against the San Jose Sharks, and let me just get did you watch the game? I
watched bits of it,
okay. Yeah. How did you feel about Patrick Kane? I get it. He just had a newborn, guys. You can't dump on him. I mean, he's getting up every hour at this stage, so you gotta take what you can get. What was it like seeing Patrick Kane in a Red Wings jersey?
Yeah, that one took me a minute, and I'm still not quite used to it. I mean, for those who don't know, hopefully if you're listening to the show, but the Red Wings used to be in the West and had a long-standing rivalry with the Blackhawks when they were in the early 2010s, late 2000s.
Yeah, did the Red Wings move to the East after the lockout in 2013? Yeah. Is that when they moved to the East? Man,
pretty much.
Is that wow? That doesn't seem that long ago. It seems like they've been in the East longer. But I guess that definitely is because they would play the Blackhawks in the playoffs. Yeah,
I do wish though that they would shuffle things around so we could have all original 6 teams in one conference. But I digress.
Well, that doesn't help anybody make money in the Western Conference.
No, it doesn't. Yeah, so what are you going to do? But, it'll take some getting used to. I mean, Patrick Kane has always been a huge, I don't know if you want to call it, that rivalry that the Blackhawks had with Detroit for a while. Typically there was always seemingly every year like a second-round matchup with these teams until Detroit, fizzled out a little bit after a bit, after the Zetterberg Gadzuk era. But for the Red Wings last night, I mean, it was great to see Kaner get out there and just get his legs going, right? He didn't look like, obviously he still has to get up to speed, but it didn't look like he had been off and had a huge, hip resurfacing surgery.
Yeah, so he created some offense when he was out there.
Looked a little bit more in not out of place as I thought he was going to look.
Rang one off the pipes.
Yeah. He had a good 3-4 good chances where I thought maybe he could put up a couple points there, but obviously things didn't work out, and so this is going to take time. I mean, the bottom line is, regardless if he has that chemistry with DeBrincat still there, and they can rekindle that quicker than chemistry with other players on this team, it's still going to take time, right? He's still got new defensemen, new systems, all this stuff, and he's pretty much moved around a couple teams the last year and a half. So it'll be a little bit. I suspect another week before we really start seeing him take off. But in the meantime, it was just nice to see him get out there, not look out of place, and and be able to still move a little bit.
Yeah, I think probably the most surprising aspect of the way that Derek Lalonde decided to play him was the 16 minutes and 33 seconds of ice time. I thought that was pretty high for a guy who's coming off of the surgery, and I mean, maybe on the one hand you go, well, he hasn't played and he's decently fresh, and the rest of the guys aren't. But I figured that he'd be more in the 12, 13 minute range, but gets 16 minutes. I guess that's they're trying to get back into the game, and and maybe just trying to give him his legs. Maybe he said, "Hey, I feel great. Look, keep putting me out there." But that was something that surprised me. I mean, the game itself, my goodness. A 4-0 lead for the Red Wings after they score 4 goals in 4 minutes and 35 seconds, which I think three of those goals were in 50 seconds, something like that, 49 seconds.
Gosh, they were just ridiculous. Bang, bang.
And then San Jose comes back, scores 3 goals in 1 minute and 44 seconds, and then notches another one before the end of the period ends and ties it up at 4. And then they blow another lead after Larkin scores in the third, and Tomas Hertl with 1:29 left in the third manages to score again on Ville Husso, who I will say, if there's anything that I kind of look back to, it's, and Ville Husso just does not look great. And I'm surprised.
Yeah.
I'm surprised that he is having such a bad start to this year, because he played so well in front of a bad team last year. And, I mean, so far, 3.65 goals against and an 8.86 save percentage. Just has not looked great. I mean, he's 8-4-2, so he's winning, but it's generally because his team is putting up some big numbers in front of him.
Yeah, the Red Wings are the second highest scoring team in the NHL, so there's your big numbers, right? But, to me, last night I don't want to pin all on Husso. I do think there were a lot of odd man rushes going back the other way, and of course, the couple shorties to me were like the biggest smack my head kind of things where I'm like, are you freaking kidding me? Like, that's the stuff that drives coaches mad, especially it's one thing to give up one shorthanded goal every once in a while, but when you give up 2 in a game, especially on the same power play, it's like, seriously, what the fuck are we doing? Like, you think after the first one they would tighten up a little bit, right? They wouldn't take as many chances, but boy. Yeah. So last night, not so much Husso's fault in my opinion, but still, I agree with you. I think his play this year overall has been pretty poor. And especially when you have Reimer, who's been playing pretty good, although he hasn't been getting any starts lately, and Alex Lyon, who's been, been great every game he's been in so far. I'd be just rolling with those two guys as much as possible until
I am confused.
Until they cool down.
I'm confused as to why Alex Lyon isn't getting more playing time. Like, I get you can't overload a guy, but he's only played 5 games. It's not like he's all right. He's played 12 of the first 25 games, but he's only played 5 games, and that's he's played fantastic in them. What, a 9.47 save percentage? I don't get it. I don't know what this guy has to prove in order to be given a shot.
Yeah, I don't either. And you look at it so I get it. San Jose coming in the last 3 games has been really hot. I think they scored 15 goals in their last 3 games. So they came in hot, right, against Detroit. So you knew they were going to bring a little bit. They were probably going to push. But this is a game that a team like Detroit, who's trying to get into the playoffs, has to win and not necessarily win easily, but it shouldn't be this close, right? They shouldn't have to go to overtime with San Jose. It should have been over in regulation, especially after they got up 4-0, right? Those are those games where you look as a playoff team and you say, we have to win those, right? These are the games we can't lose. And this is the first time this season, obviously, we've had a team come back from a 4-goal deficit to win. So there's that if you're Detroit. But, I mean, just overall, I think, I'd like to see Alex Lyon play a little bit more moving forward. And maybe Husso taking a little time off, playing once every 4 or 5 games and rotating Reimer and Lyon in there might be what he needs right now to get the crease back. Yeah,
I would agree. I mean, for the most part, Detroit is still kind of buzzing along. They haven't slowed down too much.
But Toronto's creeping up, though.
Toronto's creeping. I mean, yeah, they've got the 2 games in hand, but also Toronto is just been smashed by injuries, which we will get to talk about their defensive situation. On top of that, Joseph Wall going down last night, which some suspect is a groin injury, some suspect is some kind of knee injury, but Sheldon Keefe after the game saying that he will miss some time. But before we get into that, I just wanted to drop on Alex Ovechkin becoming the 12th fastest player to 1,500 points, 16th player all time to reach 1,500 points. I'd say that there's, to reach this milestone, it's something that we very, very rarely see. What in our adult life, what we've seen it like a few times. We've seen Crosby do it, and like Joe Thornton has done it, but very few times has this happened, especially coming out of the 90s, late 90s, early 2000s of just slog play where nobody could even get close to 100 points. Now you're starting to see guys put up big numbers. I think, obviously we'll see Connor McDavid hit these numbers, Leon Draisaitl, but it'll be a while. What are your thoughts on Ovechkin hitting 1,500 points?
It's good for him, right? I'm sure he's like most players were like, yeah, that's really cool. And it's awesome. But, I think right now it's, with Ovi anyways, it's, the goal scoring, right? That's where the focus is. But, just from, like you said, he's the 16th person to ever do this. And that's just something that, again, every generation they have their superstars and guys that, have the potential to hit these kind of numbers. And it's great to know that he's had the longevity, that he's, been able to stay healthy and still be able to put up consistent numbers. And it's very rare you get to see
until
any
this
kind
year.
of player. Yeah, right. Yeah.
Only 5 goals so far.
Right. And it's just great to be able to witness this kind of greatness. Again, I grew up in an era where I started watching Joe Sakic, Steve Yzerman. I tail into Mario Lemieux's career where, I was watching these really, these big name superstars leave the game, and you kind of wonder, okay, well, where's the next group of superstars? And, we're kind of seeing the tail end of that with the Crosbys, the Ovechkins, Malkins, those guys now. And so it's,
yep.
It's the end of an era. It kind of feels like.
Yeah, there was a time there where it really felt like there was no superstar in the NHL. Mm-hmm. And everybody's kind of looking around like, who's going to be the next guy? Because there isn't one right now. And, and it's no knock on Joe Thornton, but I think he wasn't that personality. And he was more of a setup guy. Like he didn't score very many goals at all. Some season he's got 70 assists and 12 goals. And that's just not going to be the guy who's probably the face of the league. Then of course Crosby and Ovechkin come in, and the rest is history. I think Ovechkin recently said something like, these young players just don't appreciate, like Sydney and I saved the game, and they have no idea what we did for the game, and like the game is the way it is because of us. I was like, that's bold, but I think it's probably true.
Yeah, no, it is. I mean, I remember back, when they first came into the league, right? They were coming out of the lockout era, and there was all this, what's the word for it? I don't know. They just, it wasn't the popular sport it is right now. And I know, right. Again, it's not up there with football and baseball and that kind of stuff as far as viewers. But I remember just sitting there watching those ESPN commercials with Ovechkin and Crosby. I don't know if you remember like the hotel one where they're prank calling and ordering pizzas and all that stuff.
Yes.
Where Ovi's a Russian spy in the file cabinet room of ESPN. Like, that's the kind of stuff that I miss in today's game that you want out of your superstars, right? You want those guys to be funny, charismatic. You want them to be just kind of have a personality where, like, other guys from other sports, they know who they are because of, one, their talent, but two, just the personality, and they're guys that you want to see on TV every night.
Yep, 100%. All right, let's fly into all these injuries that we're starting to see across the league. I mean, this is about that time of year. We're getting close to Christmas, and this is when teams actually start to consider, what are we moving? What are we looking for? They've had 25, 30 games to evaluate their team, and it's pretty clear that, like many years, defense is going to be at a premium because there are quite a few teams that are just missing that extra piece on defense. Some because of injuries, some just because they didn't have the cap space to buy it over the offseason and they have to wait until the deadline. Let's start with Toronto. Outside of Chris Tanev, who we know that the Leafs have tried to acquire, outside of Chris Tanev, is there anybody that you see fitting the Leafs' need of that right shot D?
The right shot. Oh, that's
Because that's what they're looking for, is that right shot D. Although I got to think that they would happily take 2 defensemen. Like, that's how shallow they are at defense. As they need 2 defensemen probably going into the playoffs. Now, are both those defensemen going to be top 4, like legit top 4 players? I'm not sure that they have the assets to do it without giving up somebody that they really want to keep. But I mean, those that's kind of what's out there. Is you need to have many defensemen available to you come playoff time, and I mean they're just down to everybody's down. Liljegren and you've got, oh my gosh, Giordano is out, and it just kind of keeps compounding on itself. And they have just been destroyed with injuries. They're still very much in a playoff race and all that. I don't think that it's going in that direction where they're just going to disappear from the playoffs. But it has been quite the journey, and of course John Klingberg going down, and he's out for the rest of the year after he's going to have some surgery. Sounds like some kind of hip surgery, and yeah, you're down 3 of your defensemen. This is just like last year. They did the same thing. I think it was like 4 starters were down last year. So they've got to make moves here, and I'd say relatively quickly. I don't know that they'll make a move before Christmas, but I got to think that sometime in January you got to look at this and go, we got to start moving to build for the playoffs. Like, sometimes bringing in a guy right at the deadline, because it takes a month just to get associated with the team and get up to speed, that you almost want to acquire that guy in January or February so that they're a little more incorporated with what's going on.
Yeah. I mean, they've got some work to do, right? And like you talked about, those right-handed defensemen though are definitely going to be hard to come by. If Toronto wants to go out and snag one, boy, they've got a tall task in front of them as far as finding the assets to do it.
Well, and it's like you look at the standings and you go, I mean, who is even selling right now? The teams you expected to be sellers, I mean, maybe the Red Wings. Like in the beginning of the year, I think we thought, come trade deadline, the Wings are probably going to be that like hybrid seller. Like they'll get rid of a few guys maybe, but not as it looks like right now. Same with the Flyers. Like, are the Flyers going to go and sell off all their UFAs? Probably not, sitting in the 2nd seed in the Atlantic Division. So then you're scrolling down and you're looking at, like, it's. Can we just talk about how the Ottawa Senators have only played 21 games, and ahead of them, the Blue Jackets have played 28 games? That's unbelievable. How do you get 7 games behind the next team? I mean, there's multiple teams that have played 28 games. That is just madness. Only played 21, so I mean, yeah, they're at the bottom of the standings, but if they win half of their games, suddenly they're actually they're like right there. They could still be in the hunt for the playoffs, assuming that they win, although they don't look too great. But you wouldn't think right now Ottawa's going to be a seller. Like, you look at them and you think, well, they just have not played nearly as many games as everyone else. Let's see what they do with those games in hand. But you got to think, like, Columbus, are they going to be sellers? Got to think they're probably looking to move, but move on from whom? Like, they just brought in defensemen to try and shore this whole team up, and it hasn't really done much. But who are you moving on the Columbus Blue Jackets right now from a defensive standpoint? You're not going to go and move Provorov. And nobody wants Goodbranson at $4 million, not even $2 million.
Nope.
So it's a messy market for teams that need defense, and all these teams that are bad. I'd be looking at these really good teams, going, "Why the hell would I help you? Why am I going to trade you this guy now? I'll just hang on to him for a little while, and his value will likely grow as we get to the playoffs or to the deadline."
Yeah, I think for Toronto, a good idea might be to try to find a team that isn't necessarily looking to. Like, for example, right, the Philadelphia Flyers, right? They're just in there kind of nobody expected them to be there, right, in the playoff mix this year. And so, yeah, they've got some players that, are going to be UFAs or guys that have been on the trade block before that, for example, we've, Kevin Hayes, right? He was on the trade block, it seemed like, for the last few years, and he finally got dealt this offseason. But maybe try to make like a 1-for-1 swap where maybe you're trying to just find a guy who needs just a change of scenery, and that, maybe Philadelphia is willing to take back, right? For example, I know the Flyers have been rumored to always wanted to move on from Ristolainen, even though they just signed him to a new contract extension. Again, that could be somebody that maybe, Toronto might entertain and just throw somebody back the other way, whether it's, Jake McCabe or TJ Brody or, who knows. But, try to move pieces, just shift money back and forth where maybe you just get a couple guys a fresh start somewhere else, right?
Yeah, it would be interesting about, like, TJ Brody, I think, is a UFA at the end of the year. Or does he have 2 years left?
No, he's a UFA at the end of the year. But maybe you find another team, like I mentioned, that just wants to make a move, but because they're tied up with cap, a large cap hit, maybe you can say, okay, cool, well, we'll take this defenseman off your hands. If you, keep a third of the salary, we'll take him from you, even though maybe he's playing on your third line. He's being overpaid. Like, I look at a guy like, Ben Sherratt in Detroit, right, who I don't think is worth the $4 million they're paying him. But, maybe you find another team that's willing to take on, 3.5 and willing to take him back and, send another guy another way, right? So now you can get Ben Sherratt a fresh start somewhere else, or just, I know Detroit's not going to move him, but that's just kind of an example is what I'm looking at, is a guy who maybe is on that second, third pairing that, maybe could just use a change of scenery. Yep.
Certainly those are the guys who are likely to be moved, are the easy ones to move. It's the bigger salary ones, or the ones that have more than 1 year left on their deal. I did hear that Tony DeAngelo, is I guess they're the same person, Anthony, Tony, whatever you want to call him, right? That he is on the trade market, and he has been for about a month. He to me isn't the kind of guy that Toronto would want, but maybe he's the kind of guy that New Jersey would want to but to come in and eat some of the minutes that Dougie Hamilton would have eaten. I could see him or Tyson Barrie, who are both the offensive kind of guy. You could drop them on your power play. They'll contribute a little bit. People like Tyson Barrie. I don't know about Tony DeAngelo. But Tony DeAngelo has put up some big points. A couple years ago, he had 51 points in 64 games. So he's somebody who can put up big points for you. The Devils desperately need some offense. Just they need some things to kind of change, and maybe bringing in one of those two guys could really help them out. I don't think he's the guy that the Leafs are looking for. The Leafs, I would guess, are looking for somebody who is actually going to fight back. And Tyson Barrie's already been there once with Toronto, and with Sheldon Keefe, and it wasn't working, and so I can't imagine that he's coming back to Toronto. So I wouldn't think that would be a likely place for him.
No, but it's a good thought, right? I mean, and if I'm Toronto, right, I mean, obviously I'm taking a swing at Noah Hannafin, seeing if I can get him to come on board. Obviously, if you can get him to come over at 4.9 or even less, if Calgary's willing to keep something, I mean, obviously Noah Hannafin's going to cost you a lot already, and to get them to keep salary is going to cost you even more. So maybe that's not in Toronto's ballpark, but maybe they go to another guy like a Justin Schultz in Seattle, who's a right-handed defenseman. He can come in and he's got a little offensive talent, but I think he's kind of developed the defensive side of his game since his days in Pittsburgh a little bit better. Could be an option, or maybe even Dmitry Kulikov in Florida, who kind of seems a little bit more expendable as their defense gets a little healthier and they start to to click with their top guys, and he loses minutes there. So maybe be a guy that they could look at. But again, I don't think in division is going to be all that plausible, if you want my opinion. But
the problem with the Kraken is that you look at them and you go, I mean, are they really in a position to where they're going to want to deal guys? I get they're not in the playoffs right now. They are 6 points out, but a couple of games in hand, and it just doesn't seem like a team that should or would want to go backwards from where they were last year. Like, such hype from last year, and then to go, oh, actually, oops, it was kind of all just a ploy. It wasn't as legit as it looked. At that point, are you trading Eberle? Are you trading Wenberg? Are you trading Pierre-Edouard Bellemare or Justin Schultz, like you said? And is this actually a team that should have, they shouldn't have made the playoffs last year, and they should have kept building, but they had the right mix of players. They made the playoffs. Things look good. And It kind of reminds me of that New Jersey team with Taylor Hall when they made the playoffs. It was amazing. I think they got swept or lost in 5 games in the first round, and then they just continued to miss the playoffs for the next 5 years. And I wonder if that's actually this team that they tricked us all last year, and really they aren't a playoff team, and it's going to take another minute for them to kind of blossom into the team that they really will be.
Yeah, and maybe it's a situation too for a team like Toronto, right? Maybe they are interested in a guy like Justin Schultz from Seattle, but again, like you mentioned, they're not ready to, throw in the towel per se right now. So maybe you have to swing a 3-way trade to get a team like, maybe say Chicago, right? Maybe, a guy like Connor Murphy would fit in very, very well. He plays a really good defensive game. Doesn't bring a lot of offense to the table, but plays good defensive, hard-nosed minutes. Maybe that's a guy that a team like, Seattle could really use right now. So maybe you kind of, throw that idea out there as a 3-way trade to get a guy like Schultz to come over to the Toronto Maple Leafs.
Yeah. And he's got 3 years or 2 years left on his deal after this year, Connor Murphy. So that probably favors a team like Seattle. Toronto, it's probably too rich for what they're looking at with their cap down the road. But yeah, in a 3-way trade, that could make a lot of sense. Something along those lines. It seems like these teams are going to have to get really creative to make happen what they want to happen.
Yep.
All right.
Or maybe you go and maybe a guy like Matt Dumba, right, in Arizona. There's another guy I was thinking about the other day because he just hasn't fit in very well with Arizona, so his minutes just keep,
and Arizona's crushing
going
it.
down.
So yeah, if you just jettison him somewhere else and acquire maybe a forward who can come in and make a difference for you, that's not a bad ploy either for the Coyotes.
Yeah.
And I mean, the Coyotes have 0 defensemen signed after this year.
0.
Well, I'm sorry. They have Shea Weber signed after this year on LTIR.
Oh, that's so rich. I love it.
Yeah, their defense only makes up 13.9% of their cap right now.
Yeah, well, that'll change. Guys like Sean Dursey and J.J. Moser are going to get some nice little increases. So,
yes, they will.
Yeah.
All right. Let's. There's a lot going on in the NHL from an injury standpoint, but at the same time, there's tons happening from guys that are having some fantastic years. I wanted to ask you before we jet out of here, because there are some surprise teams, there's some surprise players. What players are you most excited to watch right now? Guys that you did not think were going to be players, and here they are, they're killing it, and you're excited to go and check out their team.
Boy, I got to still say I got to go with Vancouver right now. I've just been excited to watch them, the way they've been playing. I mean, granted, they're not playing as hot as they were to start the season, but they've just been fun to watch for me. And, especially because, a lot of times, right, you talked about me not getting sleep right now, with the baby, but a lot of times I'm up a little bit later than maybe I would be. And so getting to watch that team on the West Coast like Vancouver that is just playing some good hockey and has a lot of guys there that are just fun to watch, like Quinn Hughes and JT Miller right now.
That's it. They're so fun to watch. Their games are entertaining.
Exactly.
103 goals so far, which is, hey, Detroit sitting at 96, but 103 goals leads the league. Who would have thought Vancouver would be the top offensive team in the NHL headed into
that's
Christmas?
Wild.
It's pretty crazy. I will say the teams that I've really been kind of honing in on, the Rangers have just been. I'm usually a Ranger hater. I know you love the Rangers generally. You've always liked Shesterkin. You've always been a big New York guy. But they have just changed under Peter Laviolette. They are a much more fun team to watch. They're really good defensively, and with Shesterkin, the way that they're playing this year, man, they might be my favorite for the Stanley Cup so far.
Oh,
they are playing that well, and I think they're really set up nicely to do some damage, because suddenly this Atlantic division doesn't look that good, and the Rangers do. And I don't think that this is the Rangers are kind of inflated because the teams below them haven't been playing as well. On the contrary, I think that the Rangers have played really well against other teams in other divisions, and they're just kind of set up to do some damage because they've got in terms of cap space, they have $5.7 million in cap space. How many teams at the top of the league have over $5 million in cap space? They are a terrifying team, especially as someone who is a fan of the Leafs, also in the Eastern Conference, a likely opponent later in the playoffs if both teams make it through. The Rangers would scare the hell out of me.
Yeah, I mean, Panarin's just playing at another level right now. He's been so good to watch. And it's funny when you look at a guy like, for me, Vincent Trocheck, right? He's playing so much better than he was last year, and it shows you a difference that a guy like Peter Laviolette has come in and done. And Alex Lafreniere, he just looks like he's finally starting to click a little bit and finally starting to be something like that number one pick that he was touted to be. That's super exciting. And they're doing this, too, with guys like Adam Fox going down for long periods of time.
Right.
And, Filipino's out. So, imagine being healthy all year, the whole entire year, all 24 games, what this Ranger team could actually be right now.
Yeah, I think, Lafreniere, the way that he's playing this year, he's on pace for 60 points or so, 30 goals. I think you're more than happy with that if you're the Rangers. I think that when you draft a guy first overall, you're hoping that he's a 100-point guy. You're looking at Jack Hughes. You're looking at, it's almost not fair to say Bedard or McDavid because they're just such otherworldly talents. But you look at the impact that even like Nico Hischier to some extent, at least he makes a consistent positive impact on his team. He's well liked, and not that Lafreniere's not well liked, but Hischier has become a crucial person in that Devils organization, and Lafreniere just hadn't done that up until this year. But then you look at it and you go, he's only 22. And you think about who you were when you were 22. Mm-hmm. Most people are like, and then you think, well, at 21, 20, and and then all the things that he had to probably affected his development, much like a Quentin Byfield, who is also having a great start to the year. Was affected by all the COVID stuff and all the strange happenings throughout the league during that time period of about 2 years worth. That development just was not there, and so I think we're kind of seeing now what both these players could become. Were they were both drafted in the same year, right? Was that the one too?
Quentin Byfield? Oh, Byfield? No. Byfield, I think, was number 3. I think, but
oh well. I was close.
Yeah, but regardless.
But same draft? Was that the same draft?
That I don't remember, actually.
Yes. No, he was number 2. You bastard.
Okay.
Trying to tell me I'm wrong.
Gosh. Okay.
Number 3 in that draft was Tim Stützle. Number 4, Lucas Raymond. And number 5, Jake Sanderson.
Yep. Okay. It's coming back to me now.
So, all right. Well, Justin, I'll let you get back to your baby and your wife. Enjoy that time, and to our listeners, thanks for being here. Thank you for putting up with us as we get through this interesting time in Justin's life. But it's just craziness going on. But we love you guys. Thanks for listening, and we'll talk to you guys soon.